only other scripture that the Quran recognizes. It doesn't mean that it existed at the time of the revelation of the Quran. It doesn't mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that is an okay scripture to refer to. No, it's just saying before the Quran there was one other scripture, and that was the book of Musa, the book that was given to Musa. Here's another ayah from Surah Hud, Surah 11, ayah 17. أَفَمَنْ كَانَ عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ وَيَتْلُوهُ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْهُ. We're only going to translate the part that's in yellow. وَمِن قَبْلِهِ كِتَابُ مُوسَى إِمَامًا وَرَحْمَةً. It's actually special. وَمِن قَبْلِهِ كِتَابُ مُوسَى إِمَامًا وَرَحْمَةً. And before it, before the Quran, scripture of Musa is an exemplar and a mercy. And here's another ayah from Surah 46, ayah 4, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges people, again confirming that the book that it refers to, the Quran refers to, which is the book of Musa, did not exist at the time of revelation of the Quran. And this ayah makes it really clear. There should not be anyone who dares to come and say, well, at the time of Muhammad there was a scripture, and at the time of Muhammad there was a Bible. No, this ayah will make it very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is challenging people. ائتوني بكتاب من قبل هذا. Bring me one book before this. Well, what about the book of Musa? It did not exist at that time. Whatever existed was rewritten from memory and mostly wrong. Erroneous, and we don't know what's wrong and what's right. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, challenging them. This is not the book that I read. This is something wrong to the Iranian. Again, referred widely as the Quran. Really evaluate all of the evidence that the Quran gives us about claims of earlier scriptures and the warnings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us to those who may think that these made-up books are actually the real scriptures. I hope it's really clear. This ayah challenges people in Turi, bring me the scripture made accessible before this one, the real one, prove it. And he even tells them more. أو أثارة من علم, or even a trace of evidence-based divine knowledge that was given to you, that remains still with you. Give me the divine knowledge that was given if you were truthful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly challenging them, telling us that those earlier scriptures, or that one earlier scripture, the book of Musa, was no longer in existence. So the only one that exists at the time of revelation of the Quran is the Quran itself. I hope the issue was clear. We can put this issue to bed. Don't let anyone delude you into thinking that this book and that book and the other one, and they're all from Allah and therefore it's okay. No, it's not true. The Quran is really clear. So now we ask, what is Zabur? They told us that the Zabur is the book of David, Psalm 86, and that's not true. Now the word Tawrat is derived from wara or waraya, which is concealed. Again, Tawrat itself is named after the style of covering up the information. And we said many, many times that the Quran uses the same style, the style of Zabur. We've mentioned this in many, many different videos and segments on this channel. In ayah 4:163, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ كَمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى نُوحٍ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ مِن بَعْدِهِ, etc., etc. And then at the end of this ayah it says, وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ زَبُورًا. You see that's an ending. Wrong. Here it says, we have given Dawood Zabur. Zabur, that's a book, clearly. No, it's not. That's not what it says. It says we allowed Dawood to learn the instruments of the kingdom. That's what it is, because Dawood was going to be a prophet in the style of the Torah. And therefore we needed to understand how Allah concealed himself in the scripture of Musa, in the Torah. And therefore, as a Nabi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the Zabur, the keys to unlock those concealments. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that Dawood had access to special knowledge. First, because he was a Nabi in the style of the Torah. Our beloved
Show my starts recording.
Understand the location of the Quran. Again, to claim that the Zabur is the Psalms of David, so to speak, in order to try to convince us that the so-called Bible contains things that are confirmed by the Quran, which is a lie. It's not true. So this ayah 21:105 وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. This is the first time we disclose this on this channel, so please pay attention. And we have written, using the style of the Zabur, Fi Zabur, using the style of Zabur. What does that mean, Fi Zabur? Well, if you go to the last ayah in Surah 29, Al-Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in that last ayah a usage of this preposition fi, which teaches us that it means in the style of, or using the way of. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that ayah, in Surah Al-Ankabut, Surah 29, the last ayah says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا in us. No, not in us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have a cavity with people in it. No, those people who strive in our way, that's what the ayah is saying. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, we shall guide them to our ways to the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. So therefore, fi in the style of, this is exactly the same word in here. Fi Zabur, in the style of, or using the style of, the way of the Zabur. What is Zabur? The concealment instruments, of course. The keys to Allah, such concealment. After the dhikr, after the stories and parables. And throughout the whole Quran, anytime you read the story, after it, there is some mention about Jannah or about people who inherit the scripture. Specifically, I'm going to give you one example from Surah Az-Zumar. Very clearly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the same thing. This ayah 21:105, أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ, that the scripture, al-ard, is inherited by my wayfarers who engage the scripture using the divine lexicon. Does the Quran say this? All over the place. This is one example in ayah 39:74. وَقَالُوا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي صَدَقَنَا وَعْدَهُ وَأَوْرَثَنَا الْأَرْضَ. And they said, all due praise belongs to Allah, who has fulfilled in truth His promise to us and granted us inherit the scripture. وَأَوْرَثَنَا الْأَرْضَ نَتَبَوَّأُ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ حَيْثُ نَشَاءُ, etc., etc. So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, these people who have toiled properly, عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ, good wayfarers who toil according to the divine lexicon, they will inherit the scripture. They will inherit the understanding and the caretaking of the scripture. That's us, inshallah. But this ayah is saying specifically, every time you read any part of dhikr, the stories and the parables, which are over 60% of the Quran, after that mention of that story or that parable, usually there is a mention to who inherits al-ard, who inherits the scripture, and who inherits the Jannah, etc., etc. And this is exactly what this ayah is saying. Again, this is just an example, but you can find the same concept all over the Quran. So what is Zabur in this ayah? Well, it's the instrument of concealment in the Quran. This is a methodological ayah that's talking about the style of the Quran. It's telling us, as Zabur, which is the keys to unlock Zabur, the concealment, is present in the Quran. That's all it's saying. And this is confirmed by some of these ayat that we saw in here. The book of Musa is an exemplar for the Quran. It has many of the same techniques used by the Quran itself. So I hope this is put to bed now. Zabur is not the book or the scripture of David. David or Dawood was a Nabi. He does not have his own scripture in the first place. And Dawood is clearly described in the Quran as a Nabi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not refer to him once as a Rasul. So I don't know why the scholars in our tradition refer to Dawood, who has his book of Psalms, so to speak. The people who say that are the ones who want to validate the counterfeit writings that they wrote and they want to attribute to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope that you never fall into that trap. So next we're going to go to do the lexical analysis, the linguistic analysis for the Quran, which will develop a working theory, a conjecture, so to speak. And we're going to proceed to follow the methodology, validating it, verifying it, and reaching the confidence and the certainty that we have landed on the proper understanding of the word. So So first, we're going to recognize, we're going to observe that the word Injil is based on an Arabic root. The root is najl, and it's using the morpheme if'il. This is a little bit of morphology, a little bit of technical detail, but those of you who are interested need to know these facts. So the morpheme if'il exists in Arabic, and it is used properly in the Quran to refer to the miniaturization morpheme if'il. It means something that's reduced in size, or something that is smaller, or later, or something like a cute description given for miniaturization purpose. And it's derived from the root, which is a legitimate Arabic root, Injil, from najala. And the root najala has multiple meanings. Check the dictionaries if you want, and you will find them yourself. The first one is a son, a son. So therefore, Injil means the little son, miniaturization, or the last son, the latest son, so to speak. What else? The root najala, it's a verb, and it means to cut, as in minjal. Those of you who speak Arabic know this word. Minjal, it's the instrument, the sickle or the machete that's used for harvesting purposes. And it's usually represented with a curved blade. And those of you who remember history, you remember seeing on the flag of the USSR, the old Soviet Union, so to speak, they used the hammer and sickle. The sickle, that sickle, is called minjal. It's used for cutting and harvesting wheat and various plants, etc., etc. Another word for it may be machete, except machete is a straight blade. With the sickle, it's a curved blade. So the curved blade is called minjal, from the same root, najala. So najala means to cut. Again, Injil, it may be referring to the instrument for cutting, maybe a miniaturized or the latest instrument for cutting. I hope some of you are starting to see the theme that is emerging from this morpheme if'il based on the root najala. So the son, to cut, and also the third meaning for the same root najala, to extract water from dry land. To extract water from dry land. Is this referring to someone we know? Of course. It's referring to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is the last son in the Abrahamic tradition. He is the last Nabi, prophet, descendant from Ibrahim, which is important to the Torah-based system, not important to the Quran, because the Quran is for all mankind, not for a limited group of people. And furthermore, Muhammad came to cut, we're going to see in detail, he came to cut, and Muhammad came to provide water, or to extract water from the dry land. Those of you who have watched the series on Isa ibn Maryam remember our discussion on Teen, and how Musa brought water from Madian back to Misr in order to become Teen. We've talked about this before. This is a similar concept, to extract water from dry land. So does this apply to Muhammad? Let's watch. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being the youngest or the latest son among the lineage of the Abrahamic prophets, qualified to be described as Injil. So Injil is a descriptor. It's not a name of a book. It's a descriptor of something. What is that something? That something is Muhammad in this case. This is the working theory that we're going to proceed to validate and verify and prove. And we're going to see one by one all 12 ayat that refer to the word Injil confirm that this is the right meaning, or at least they accept this meaning being Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's continue. Number 2, more specifically, it refers, Injil refers to what he was given of the knowledge of the Torah as the last Nabi of Bani Israel. Remember, he was a Nabi to Bani Israel. This is what I reminded you at the very top of this segment. Now, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, please refer back to YT 134, YT 135, where we presented the irrefutable evidence from the Quran, clearly showing us that this is exactly the fact. The fact that was hidden from us for 1400 years. Nonetheless, the Quran reveals it when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirms this in the Quran for us. Now, he was the last Nabi of Bani Israel, the youngest Nabi for Bani Israel, so to speak, Injil, from the youngest son in the Abrahamic lineage of Nabiyyun. He was also an instrument to cut. To cut what? To eliminate the burdens and requirements previously imposed on Bani Israel. Is there evidence of this? We're going to see evidence toward the end of the segment. Stay with me. And you're going to see again what he was given of the knowledge of the Torah as the last Nabi of Bani Israel allowed him to come and eliminate a lot of the burdens, the requirements that were imposed on Bani Israel, and also to help them move to the Quranic system of divine guidance, the direct divine guidance that does not go through an intermediary such as the prophets, the Nabiyyun. Muhammad was also a warner who will cut, meaning terminate the rejecting cauteries. Of course, he was Nadir, he was a warner, and he did cut. So he brought punishment to those last cauteries who refused to follow the guidance from Allah according to the Torah. And of course, as a Nabi, he was an instrument to extract water from the dry earth, from the Torah in that case. He was a Nabi of the Torah, not of the Quran. For the Quran, he was a regular human being, other than he was a messenger bringing the text itself. But when it came to do tadabbur, engaging the Quran, he was a leader of the Quran, working through the instruments of tadabbur al-hikmah, to understand through the bayinat of the Quran how to understand the Quran. But as a Nabi, he was a Nabi for the Torah. He had knowledge of the Torah. Allah provided him that knowledge about the Torah so he can be the Nabi for Bani Israel. So he was an instrument to extract water from the dry earth, which is the Torah. These are the bayinat that Allah taught our beloved in order to teach them, teach Bani Israel, and in order to convince them to move on to the non-prophethood system of the Quran. I hope it's really clear. The theory fits beautifully in describing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, is this enough? No, because the methodology forces us to continue validating this information and verifying that it does not violate any other principle or any other knowledge that we have about the Injil. So let's continue moving on with the next step. So this is starting a plausible conjecture, hypothesis. Injil is a reference to Muhammad, or more specifically, a reference to something he was given in relation to his knowledge about the Torah in his role as a Nabi to Bani Israel. So this is referring to a specific part of his life, a specific part of his existence, so to speak, not necessarily relating to his messagehood or being a messenger, but it's relating to being a Nabi, the prophethood, which is targeted to Bani Israel, and the knowledge he was given to fulfill that role or that part of his life. I hope it's really clear. So this is Injil, that's why there's a miniaturization. It's not a full person of Muhammad, just that part of him that related to that role, which was so it refers to the portion of the knowledge of the original Torah that is included within the Quran, and we have talked about this before, and that is necessary for Muhammad to complete his prophethood. This portion, by the way, is what Isa ibn Maryam was originally given, but he failed in delivering on its proper implementation during his life, and thus had to return as the famous Qareen. We've described all of this in the series about Isa ibn Maryam. So please refer back to that series. You will learn a lot if you have not watched it. I urge you to not miss that information, because you need that information to understand what I just said. So next we will study all 12 occurrences of the Injil in the Quran to validate the plausibility of our proposed Muhammad. So this is the validation phase. The validation includes that we gather all of the observations, in this case, all of the ayat that include or any reference to Injil, and then we figure out if the concept of Muhammad being the Injil fits in these ayat, and if they give us some new understanding, then it's even a bonus. It's a better way to go, and then we learn new things, inshallah. So in order to review all 12 ayat, I've broken them down into 5 sets, because each set deals with the ayat as the word is used. You will see for yourself. So the first set of ayat include the expression وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْإِنْجِيلَ, which means, and we allowed Al-Injil to learn about him. Now, please pay attention, because here we're referring to the concept of Historan, Protoran, Taqdeem, wa Ta'khir. We've talked about Historan, Protoran in the series about Al-Mahdi, when we discussed some ayat that use Taqdeem wa Ta'khir. So basically, the verb آتَيْنَاهُ, allowed him to learn, is a transitive verb with two objects. When used with the term al-Injil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala employed Isran, Proteron, Taqdeem wa Ta'khir for the purposes of exclusivity of what Muhammad was given about whom? About Isa. You're going to see. Pay attention, be patient. This is going to make a lot of sense, that you need to stay patient and stay with me. So the word آتَيْنَاهُ is a verb. It is transitive, that means it requires objects. In this case, two objects. The first object and the second object. And usually the first object is the recipient, and the second object is what was given or what was allowed to the first object. So let's look at them in detail. So in this example, ayah 546, again, be patient. You're going to understand it very quickly, but it sits beautifully. And there is no way anyone who knows Arabic can tell me this is wrong. This is very legitimate Arabic, very eloquent Arabic, and it's used in other places in the Quran, as we have demonstrated. So in this ayah 546, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَقَفَّيْنَا عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ بِعِيسَى ابْنِ مَرْيَمَ. This ayah is talking about Isa ibn Maryam. مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْإِنْجِيلَ. And we allowed al-Injil. Who is al-Injil in this case? In this case, as we said, is Muhammad. Remember, we're validating that this hypothesis fits all 12 observations in the Quran. That means there's nothing left unexplained. And that makes sense. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, we allowed Muhammad to learn about him, about who? About this pronoun, who, which is referring to Isa ibn Maryam. So therefore, this fits. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did allow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as part of the first sa'ah to understand about Isa ibn Maryam. Makes perfect sense. The same expression is repeated in ayah 57:27. وَقَفَّيْنَا بِعِيسَى ابْنِ مَرْيَمَ وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْإِنْجِيلَ. And we allowed al-Injil to learn about him, about Isa ibn Maryam. Well, you're going to say, well, Histeron and Proteron provide some sort of exclusivity to Muhammad. Yes, at the time of revelation of this ayah, using آتَيْنَاهُ as a past tense, so by the time this ayah was revealed, the only one who knew about Isa ibn Maryam was al-Injil, Muhammad. Of course, so it fits beautifully. However, future Sa'ah number 2, which is us, alhamdulillah, we're also allowed to learn about Isa ibn Maryam. So this is another sign, وَإِنَّهُ لَعِلْمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ, Sa'ah number 2. So therefore we see آتَيْنَاهُ is a past tense in here and in here, and it fits beautifully into this hypothesis that we provided. Alright, we continue with the second set of ayat. In this second set of ayat, we use waw al-ma'iyya, this little waw that comes before al-Injil. Al-Injil, at the end of it, has a fatha, mansub. So, it's the waw for accompaniment, meaning along with al-Injil. So this set of ayat is talking about the type of information about the Torah that was given to accompany al-Injil. And remember I said al-Injil refers to the knowledge that was given to Muhammad in order for Muhammad to fulfill his prophethood, nabihood, so to speak, to Bani Israel. Makes perfect sense. So let's look at the observations to make sure that they fit the hypothesis. Al-Ma'idah 5:66 is the first example, first observation. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ أَقَامُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And had they restored the application of the Torah with the Injil. So what does that mean? It is saying that had Bani Israel believed or followed Muhammad as their Nabi, as they were supposed to follow him, and they would have restored the application of the Torah based on what he's teaching them, the ayah continues, they would have received eats, sustenance, from above them and from below their feet. لَأَكَلُوا مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَمِنْ تَحْتِ أَرْجُلِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them some enticing knowledge that if you believe in this Injil, Muhammad, and the knowledge about the Torah that he has, you would be provided a lot of knowledge, a lot of sustenance, a lot of information to confirm your knowledge, so to speak. So we have two other observations with the same concept, with the same pattern. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ لَسْتُمْ عَلَى شَيْءٍ حَتَّى تُقِيمُوا التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. Say, O cohorts of the scripture, prior scriptures in this case, you are upon nothing until you restore the application of the Torah with al-Injil. not only confirms the information about the meaning, the hypothesis of Al-Injil, it confirms the very first ayah that we started with at the top of the segment. The third observation, نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل. He made the scripture gradually accessible to you. Which scripture that was gradually accessible over 23 years? The Quran. Correcting that which was available between his hands, meaning Muhammad's hands. And he made accessible the Torah with Al-Injil. And he made accessible the Torah with Muhammad, who was a Nabi according to the Torah. Makes perfect sense. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using this style. So this completes 5 observations so far relating to the word Al-Injil. Here's the third set, another expression, يُعَلِّمُهُ الْإِنْجِيلِ. He teaches Al-Injil about him. This is very similar to أَتَيْنَاهُ الْإِنْجِيلِ. So this pronoun in here is using histeron, proteron, تقديم وتأخير, in order to give exclusivity. So in other words, he only teaches Al-Injil, Muhammad, about Isa ibn Maryam. And this is referring to context where Isa ibn Maryam is exclusively mentioned. So it's very clear, it fits beautifully. Surah Al-Imran 3:48 is the first observation we have about this. It's talking about Isa. Check the context for yourself. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And he teaches him about the scripture, the instruments for extracting evidence, Al-Hikmah, and we've talked about this before, and the Torah. And he teaches Al-Injil about him. وَيُعَلِّمُهُ, in this case, the last term, there is histeron, proteron, and tafsil applied. So therefore, he teaches Al-Injil, Muhammad, about this pronoun in here, about Isa ibn Maryam. The same thing happened in this ayah, 5:1-10. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إذ قال الله يا عيسى ابن مريم اذكر نعمتي عليك وعلى والدتك etc. etc. وإذ علمتك الكتاب والحكمة والتوراة والإنجيل. When Allah said, O Isa ibn Maryam, recall my favor upon you and your mother. When, etc. etc. And then, وَإِذْ عَلَّمْتُكَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ. And when I taught you the scripture, the instruments for extracting evidence, and the Torah, and then in green in here, and I taught Al-Injil, meaning Muhammad, in his role of a Nabi to Bani Israel, bringing knowledge about the Torah. I taught Al-Injil about you. Of course, it makes perfect sense. I taught Allamtuka, past tense, which proves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to Isa ibn Maryam after the end of his regular life, first life, so to speak. So again, this makes 7 observations that fit beautifully. Now we're going to go to the 4th set of ayat, using the expression fil Injil, meaning fi uslub al-Injil, in the style of al-Injil. And let's look at the observations. وَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلُ الْإِنْجِيلِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. Fihi clearly refers to Al-Injil. So let the cohorts of Al-Injil discern linguistically. وَلْيَحْكُمْ, let them follow the linguistic discernment. Linguistic discernment of what? Of the Torah, which doesn't exist anymore? Or the Injil, which the Quran tells us doesn't even exist? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about linguistic discernment of Al-Injil. Al-Injil meaning Muhammad, meaning what he brought, which is the Quran. So therefore, the linguistic discernment that's required in here is what Muhammad brought, which is the Quran. Let the cohorts of Al-Injil, the cohorts of Muhammad, discern linguistically based on what Allah revealed about him. About who? About Al-Injil. Where? In the Quran. Allah revealed about him, about Muhammad in the Quran. Of course, it makes sense. It fits beautifully again. So this is number 8. Now we continue to number 9. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن. Let's read it very carefully. Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for that they will have Jannah. بأن لهم Al-Jannah. They will have the concealed abodes of privileged understanding. You will get to understand exactly what that means. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them the concealed abodes of privileged understanding in exchange for them committing their lives and their properties. This is a very heavy agreement, very heavy contract, and you will see why. In exchange, they commit to fight in the cause of Allah, يقاتلون في سبيل الله, and thus they may kill and be killed. Yes, there is the possibility of engaging in physical struggle to protect yourself and to preserve the message and the responsibility that you were given. In exchange, Allah will allow you access to the Jannah. Afterwards? No. Before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they receive the Jannah after Allah bought from them their selves and their properties. While they're alive? Yes, while they're alive. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expecting from them that they fight, if that's called for, and they commit to fight in the cause of Allah, and as a result they may kill and be killed. It is a true promise upon him in accordance with the Torah and Al-Injil and the Quran. Well, let's analyze this a little bit. وَعْدًا عَلَيْهِ خَطًّا فِي التَّوْرَةِ, in the style of the Torah. Well, it doesn't exist anymore, so we don't have a way to verify this. Well-Injil, and the way that Muhammad is teaching as a Nabi, not as a messenger. So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is confirming that this contract, this agreement, is between Allah and the believers through Muhammad the Nabi. Well, Quran, like it's mentioned also in the Quran. So that's why he separated Al-Injil wa Quran. It was not enough to say Al-Injil, because Al-Injil is Muhammad the Nabi for the Torah. That's not enough. What about the Mu'mineen? The Mu'mineen are the followers of the Quran. That's why he added the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very explicit and very specific that the Injil is not related to the Quran. The role of Muhammad as a Nabi of the Torah is not related to the